So here's the finished product of the octagonal bird feeder. I've got the roof here. I built the finial, and I wanted to go over a couple of other items. This base right here, from point to point, so the diameter of this is 8 3/4 inches. So if you were going to draw this, you would use a compass, and you could draw at 8 3/4 inches. And then you could cut your 8 sides off of that. This is just the base piece right there was just a piece of 1/2 inch plywood exterior, I think. The height of these posts is 9 inches, and then there's a 1/4 inch shelf, I guess you'd say, on top of that. I've glued those down, stapled them in for a little bit more security, and I screwed them in at the bottom for even more security. To attach the post to the base, I just added some glue at the bottom, set them in place. These are set 1/2 inch from the side of the feeder. So this edge here is 1/2 inch from the side, and if you have a square, you can just lay this 1/2 inch off, come here, lay this 1/2 inch, and that'll give you the point where you can place all of these posts. Once they were glued and the glue had set, then I went ahead and put these pieces on, these little shelf pieces, the plate, put that on and glued that down, and that gave me some rigidity that I could go ahead and measure again in here and put these screws in. Now the posts here are cut, this angle right here is 22.5 degrees, and so as all I did on that was tilt my saw blade to 22.5 degrees, put my piece in so that the saw blade would just cut right to the middle of the piece, then turn it over, and it would cut the other half of the piece. So the point then is centered on the post here. And then the little fence down here was added last. That's just to keep the bird feed from coming out and dropping down onto the ground. I went over yesterday the feeder reservoir. I made 2 sides out of wood, 2 sides out of Lexan. I don't know that you'd even need 2 sides of Lexan. I guess it would show you that you need to put more feed in, I guess, before you run out. Otherwise, I don't see much of a reason for it. Yesterday, I cut the round. I showed how to measure this rounded area right here that will allow the feed to drop out. And I cut that, I ganged up the 2 pieces of wood with the Lexan between, acrylic, and cut them out with my scroll saw. It might be a little difficult. Probably if you had a Fosner bit or something, you could cut those fairly easily. Building the 8 octagonal bird feeder, the roof caused real problems for me, mainly because you have multiple angles here. You have this angle here, which forms the pitch on the roof. You have the angle here, which forms each corner of the side, and you have then a bevel on this edge right here and this edge. So on each side of each edge of your side, you have a bevel cut, and so it caused me a lot of problems. It was just impossible to figure this out without being good at trigonometry. But I found this website here called blocklayer.com. Highly recommend it. It allowed me then to go to this calculator, pyramid calculator. I could select the sides, my 8 sides I wanted. I knew I wanted around 140 millimeter sides on this. This would give me coverage over about a 10 to 10.5 inch very bottom of the bird feeder, and with a little overhang so rainwater couldn't get in the bottom of the feeder. So I used 140 millimeter. The face angle, which is this angle between the 90-degree line and this hip, and I figured it 46, mainly because at 46 the bevel angle that I have to cut is 16 degrees, so a whole number. When I looked at the 46, that gave me a whole number of, let me calculate that, that gave me a whole number of 16 degrees. Plus I like the fact that it's not too high and it gave me a nice wide base. I wanted to clarify how to make these angles on this octagonal bird feeder and get all of these sides, all 8 sides, the same size with the same angles. So in that, on that website, I put in my 140 millimeter base of my triangle. And that gave me this measure here, which was 243 millimeters. I took all 8 sides then and cut them off to that point. Now, if this is 140 millimeters here, 70 millimeters would be the midway point. I drew that point in, and now I can go to my sliding sled and I can set my sliding arm here to set this point on the edge, this point on the edge, and now I can adjust my arm of my sliding table so I get repetitive cuts every time. Once I set this in here, all I need to do is flip this over and I'll get that same cut. Now, what I wanted to do though was to have a 3/4 inch side up here at the very top. I didn't want the top to come all the way up to the point. So since I still have a square piece, what I did on that was to just to lay my square in here, take another ruler and just move that ruler to the point where I have 3/4 inch showing between the 2 sides. Make that mark. Now I can take all 8 sides, lay them together, put the bases in line, and gang cut all 8 pieces across this line right here. So I now have my 3/4 inch side that I was looking for. And then it's quite easy then at that point just to put the piece in your sliding cutter, sliding sled, and make all your cuts. They all came out very accurate and to the same size. So this worked out really well. Now let's cut some sides. All the sides are now cut and they're all the same size. To make sure I get my edges aligned properly, I just put this piece up against my fence, then I just sandwich this together, and that gives me the alignment. So the edge of this piece is aligned with the edge of this piece, so I get a straight cut across here once I put it on my fence. So this is my last cut. With the bevels cut on all sides, it's time to see if this thing fits together. These braces are going to sit on the inside of my roof line here. Based on the angle of this cut, which in my case is 46 degrees here, then I've got to make these little cuts right here to go in to the brace piece. Then I'll make a second cut that comes parallel 90 degrees to that, and this will sit down on a frame. And so I've made all my cuts, and you can see that this is parallel to this. And so I did that on a bandsaw. To me, that's you could do that on a handsaw, I think, if you were good enough. But I set up my stop here so I wouldn't go any deeper than I had measured. And then this angle right here is set such that it will make that 46 degree cut when I slide it through. And so here's my setup for doing that, and I have them all cut now, so now I just need to make that 90 degree cut to that. This angle here now is 46 degrees. I made my cut. So I readjusted the fence now 90 degrees to this cut. So from 46, you'd have to go 44 degrees on the backside of 90 now to get this second cut. So now will be 90 degrees to that first cut. So this is the frame that the roof sits on. I've got this 9 inches high, and then inside here sits a little feeder that we're yet to make, and this would be the base. So I've temporarily put those supports in the roof, and you can see that the way I cut them, they're all 90 degrees now to the ground. And so we'll just do a test fit here to see if this comes together. And with a little luck, okay, she fits on there perfectly. I don't know if I was clear before about how I mark these braces here against the foundation, but what I did was I just put the roof on with these clamped onto the foundation, and then just took my pencil and made a mark along the edge, and then that was the edge. Then I cut on the bandsaw at the I think it was 46 degrees, and then the right angle to that would be the 44, and that's why this brace sits onto the foundation here. So hopefully that clarifies that. Here's a video up inside here, and you can see the post sitting down on that frame. So it looks like it came together, it actually came together pretty well. So I'm going to call it good. The middle area of the the reservoir for the bird feed has a little pyramidal shape piece, and the only way that I've found that the safest way to cut that is with my bandsaw. So I've got this angle as sharp as I can get it. I've got a runner here. Carpet tape is on the back side of this piece. I've already made 3 cuts. I'll make my final cut now. Okay, I have my little pyramid now, and this is to allow the seeds to continually be pushed to the outside of the reservoir. The thickness on here, I just used a scrap piece of 2x4, and I let the bandsaw itself, the angle itself, determine the height. So this may be 1.5 inch, or well, probably more like 1 1/4 inch or so, maybe 1 3/8. Anyway, so my little pyramid's done. On to making the reservoir itself. Making up the reservoir now for the bird feed. These posts right here are going to be 9 inches, and these just happen to be 1/2 inch wide, 1/2 inch squares. The position I have, this dado here, all of these dados here are 1/8 inch deep, and they're offset 3/16 from my fence. And that will be to contain the sides of the reservoir. And so here are the sides. This measure between here to here is 2 1/4 inches. So I've cut these to 2 1/4 inches. And I'm going to zoom in here closely. I've offset this little circle here, semicircle, that's going to allow the feed to come out onto the floor. This is 1/8 inch and a 1/16. So 3/16 here offset on each side, and that gives me the semicircle that I'm going to cut into all 4 pieces. And that will be the sides, and I'll glue those into the posts, and we will have our reservoir ready to go. This is under the inside of the roof, and I just finished cutting the plug for the finial that will go on the very top of the roof. And I got to tell you, this was a real bear to cut this octagon that fit in there. I'm sure there's an easier solution, but I measured it. I measured across, cut the square, and then I cut everything on my sliding miter saw here. And it took a lot of trial and error back and forth. Eventually you get it done, but it seems to me there's an easier solution some way. So this is the final result of it. I think it turned out pretty well. All I need to do now is to build a post, set it down in the ground, and see if any birds come feed at it. If you like this project, keep watching for my next project, which will be a wall clock.